You're listening to episode 246 of the Small and Supercharged podcast with Ria Freeman. Just a quick one before you listen to today's podcast, which is well up there with one of my favourites. We have split this into two, so this is part one and part two will be next week because Ruth and I can ramble, let's be honest, but also the story is amazing and Ruth takes us from beginning to end and it's such a cool story. I didn't want to cut out any of it. So enjoy part one. Do let me know if you listen. And I'll see you next week as well. Well, today is a special one. We are joined by my marathon completing friend, not just a marathon running friend, a marathon completing friend, Ruth Chappell, who's a friend to the podcast and basically my little guardian angel. And is also the lady behind Dressage Anywhere. Ruth, what I don't even know where to start with this. I mean, I think we're going to have to start with the fact that Ruth is currently sat here on Zoom wearing a medal. And it wasn't, she just put it on to be funny. Have you taken it off much?
Nope.
Are you planning to take it off?
I rode my horse in it the other day.
You are joking me. Didn't it flap about when you were like trotting?
I put it under my gilet.
Jesus Christ. That said, I just said to Ruth, would I have run, it's a beautiful medal actually, but I said, would I have run 26.2 miles for it? No, but I would have waited at the end and grabbed it off someone who looked exhausted.
That would have been me.
It is very special. And you should be so proud of what you've done. I mean, I'd had no doubt you were going to do it. I was tracking you on the app. I had absolutely no doubt you were going to do it, but Christ, it's, especially with COVID a few weeks before, it's but let's take us back to the start because it's such a cool story. I love it all. Take us back. Why in God's name did you decide this was a good idea?
It's a really good question. I don't know really. Let me think. So I'm in my late 40s.
Although she doesn't look it. She got accused of being my child.
I do. Oh yeah, ha. I do look it now.
I didn't feel good about that.
Anyway, as I was saying, I couldn't even run for a bus a few years ago. I probably might struggle a bit now. Well, today I might. And it was it was around COVID, around the pandemic during 2020. We couldn't really go out and do much. And life was all just a bit dull and online and stuff all the time. And I used to see all these people in my local area jogging around, having a lovely time. And I thought, oh, that looks like fun. And then I started the Couch to 5K program. And you started it as well. Do you remember?
I finished it.
You did. You were amazing.
I wasn't, Ruth. I was looking at hedges to vomiting. I was not amazing.
No, you were. You finished it. And that is amazing. But do you remember we kept comparing notes about it? And
that annoyed me because you were always better.
No, I was not. I wasn't. But we did so well with that, and it was nice to have a buddy to do it with as well. And I remember you saying to me, you'd gone to school pickup or something, and you were chatting to some of the other ladies there picking their kids up, and you said that you were doing Couch to 5K, and one of them said to you, oh yeah, I've done that, it's really great, I'm doing half marathons now. And you repeated this to me and I was like, oh, for God's sake, that's ridiculous.
That's where my thought ended with this is a stupid idea. Then I moved on. You did you?
I didn't know. I carried on. I did Couch to 5K again with my husband Brian, who hated running probably as much as you did, and he vowed never to run again once we'd finished it. And then I just carried on, and I just kept setting myself little goals and little targets, to complete a particular distance in a certain amount of time. And then before you knew it, I thought, well, stuff it, I'll do the Basingstoke half marathon in 22. And I went and did a 10K Race for Life May last year, just to try and get a bit of race experience. Although that was a bit pants because I think the distance was slightly less than 10K, but never mind, we'll gloss over that.
I remember that discussion. You were not a happy camper.
Well, I know, I was an idiot. It's fine. And that was really good. And then I started doing Park Run in Basingstoke as well. And then I did the Basingstoke half marathon, which nearly broke me. Well, it did break me, didn't it? Because I then found out I had all sorts of problems with my back, and I'd broken it at some point in the past. And I had a disc prolapse as well. So late last year, I had lots of injections and things. And one of my friends, it was George, actually, a good friend, George, she said to me late last year, well, why don't you do the London Marathon? I mean, you're kind of halfway there and you've got this, certain level of fitness, and it'd be a shame for it to all go to waste. And if you leave it another year, you might not be able to do it. And I thought, why don't I try and do the London Marathon? So I applied for the ballot last year, because, you can't just decide you want to do it and get in. You have to
Can't just rock up on the day. No, you can't just rock up on the day.
It's kind of frowned upon. And I didn't get into the ballot.
But to be fair, the ballot, again, I mean, you understand this much more than I do, but a lot of people apply for that, don't they?
Oh my God, yeah. I dread to think how many, I don't actually know how many people, but they only had, was it something like 48,000 places this year? And I think probably triple that apply for it, because you get people all over the world applying for it because it's such an iconic race.
I have a feeling that the chap who was the director of it, I feel like I'm going to misquote him. If you're listening, apologies. I have a feeling that a figure of like 250,000 I heard.
I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest.
I'm going to Google this whilst you carry on, although it'll probably break my internet, but I'm going to go for it.
Don't do that. So I applied for it. I didn't get in. And part of me was like, oh, thank God for that, because that looks really hard. Yes, I can run 13.1 miles. And actually half of that I had to kind of saunter and shuffle rather than run. I'm not sure I could do 26.2. But then there was another part of me that was really annoyed that I didn't get into it. And I started thinking about, well, how can I change this? How can I make this happen? And a couple of friends had said before, who had run the London Marathon previously, they said to me, well, go for a charity place. Because if you can fundraise for a charity, you will get a place. So I started to explore charities. And I mean, there's loads of charities that I've got some kind of connection with, and some of them had spaces, some of them then didn't.
I've actually got intel from the TSC LondonMarathon.com website. TCS. And this was to do with the 2023 ballot.
Yeah.
More than 410,000 people who entered the ballot to participate will discover their results on Monday, the 24th of October. So wow. I was well under, actually.
Good grief, that's a lot of people, isn't it? Wow. Yeah. So yeah, it is incredibly hard to get into it. And obviously I didn't. So I started looking at charities, and there were a couple that I was looking at, because I'm sure, lots of people who know me know that my mum was diagnosed with lung cancer in 2021, late 21. And she went through a period of some treatments and chemo, and it was decided that that she would kind of halt the treatment, because it was making her quite poorly, and it wasn't actually going to extend her life at all. So so she decided that that was the best course of action. So there's been a number of charities that have been supporting her, but one that cropped up was the Roy Castle Lung Cancer Foundation. Now, I don't know if you remember him. I remember Roy Castle when I was younger, and the Record Breakers and everything.
I was thinking Record Breakers. No, I remember Roy Castle. Yeah,
he was amazing. But the horrible story about his lung cancer diagnosis and how poorly he was, and the fact that he hadn't smoked, and had lived a really healthy life and everything, and had been diagnosed with lung cancer and very sadly died. But he did a lot of work campaigning for lung cancer patients and their families, especially to try and kind of change that taboo that if you have lung cancer then you smoked, which is not true at all. And he set up he helped set up this foundation, and it is incredible, and the work that they do is remarkable. They offer a lot of support to patients and their families. There are helplines. You know, if you ever have any questions about your treatment or how you're feeling or your mental health or whatever, there are people you can phone at the Roy Castle Lung Cancer Foundation that will help and support you. They were also instrumental years ago in getting lung cancer nurse specialists posted in hospitals.
Oh, wow.
And my mum has access to these guys, and they are amazing. She can phone up anytime and leave a message, and one of them will phone her back and help her and direct her to, you know, the best support service that's there, or a doctor or oncologist, or, you know, whatever. Just, they are amazing. And I thought, well, that's the one that I've got to run for them. So I applied for the place, and when you apply, you have to, you know, say what your connection is with the charity. So I told them a whole story about my mum, and you have to come up with fundraising ideas, and, you know, I explored all of that. And then it was only a few days later, I think, I got confirmation that I could have a place in this year's London Marathon. I nearly fell off my flipping chair. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. And yeah, that's how that bit all came about. It was amazing.
I have to say, I was watching, oh gosh, it was you definitely shared it, but it was it from, I think it might have been actually from the Roy Castle Foundation itself, about basically the support they were given to their runners. And these sort of whoops came from the crowd, and they were yelling, and I just thought, oh my God, that it's so lovely to have that support kind of at different places around the marathon as well.
Yes.
But they did seem incredibly passionate about their runners.
They have been amazing. They very quickly set up a WhatsApp group for everybody who was running the marathon for them this year. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was a lot of us. And they've been on hand to support us with fundraising and coming up with ideas. There's been a lot of running chat, and we've all been supporting each other as well. But yeah, I can't remember where. I think they were at mile 22, and I was jogging along, and then I hear this Ruth, and screaming and cheering. I looked over, and I could just see this sea of blue shirts and jumpers in the Roy Castle colour, and it was just incredible just to see them and get that support. And then at the end, they were stationed in St James's Park. They had a little gazebo there with a little massage man and lots of drinks and nibbles, and it was so lovely to meet them and hug them. And they're just incredible. The support from them has been fabulous.
I love
it.
So you got your email through that said, yeah, you're one of our people.
Yeah.
And you're initially really excited.
Yeah.
Did you get the kind of wave of, oh Christ, I've got to run a marathon now?
Yeah. I did. Panic set in, because obviously the longest distance I'd ever run in my life was 13.1 miles, and all of a sudden I was going to have to double it in 4+ months. So I'm very lucky that I joined my local running club, the Hatchwarren Runners, who are fantastic people, and there's a lot of support from those guys. And there's one particular lady, Victoria, who her husband, well, she ran the London Marathon last year, so she'd already trained for it all through last year, because last year it was in October, and her husband got a place in this year's. So, and a few other people in our group got places. So she set up a long run every Sunday from January right through to April, that covered the long run for the in the training plan, and all of the weekly distance that you needed to do, and the types of runs that you needed to do to train for it. So I kind of doctored that and sort of made it fit in with my schedule and everything. and followed that. So I think some point in December, I was having my back injected and I had to have a few weeks off. And then it was obviously Christmas and New Year, and I got properly started maybe late January, and trained basically from January right through to April to be able to do it. Yeah, it was not easy.
No, and you had COVID. But that was a couple of weeks, wasn't it? But it was also, when did you start testing negative in relation to the marathon?
I don't know. I can't do the maths in my head. I tested positive 31 days before the marathon and had a complete meltdown.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'd run 5 miles that morning and then tested positive in the evening. And I thought, well, I'm fit and healthy. I'll be all right. It'll be a quick illness. And it absolutely floored me. And it took 13 days to test negative. But by day 10, I was feeling a lot better, and I was popping out for a little walk with the dog round the block, or, a couple of miles, gentle jog. So, yeah.
Not the best prep, though, is it?
It wasn't. It was not ideal.
No.
And I was I really had this meltdown that, I'd put all of this effort in and I trained so hard and I was doing so well. And I had to miss the longest run in the training plan, which was 22 miles. So the longest I'd ever run was 20. So I was feeling pretty rubbish about it. And in the runs that I was doing leading up to the marathon, I was so out of breath and I was so tired. And I just thought, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But then the last long run that we did, I think it was 12 miles. Can't quite remember. Yeah, I think it was 12 miles, only a couple of weeks ago. I felt a lot better and I thought, no, I've got this. I can do this. I might just be a little bit slower, but I can do it.
But the thing is, it obviously just completing the London Marathon is just a huge feat, whether you do it in 2 hours or however, like days. I mean, we know Claire Lomas, who did it in the rewalk suit and it took her days. It's just a mega achievement, and there's so many people. I would watch quite a lot of it on Sunday, basically looking out for you, hence why I want you to go dressed as something next time. But the range of people and the range of shapes, sizes, I mean, disabilities, gosh, everything, actually, it just brings together, it seems to bring together, obviously you were actually there, I was just watching on television, but like the very best of human nature. And I mean, I was watching I watched the elites and I watched the people in the wheelchairs. Oh my God, they are incredible.
Yeah, they really
everybody
are.
was incredible.
I saw so many amazing things on that course. I saw all sorts of people. There was people in wheelchairs, there was a great couple of chaps who were pushing, I think it was for the MS Society, and they were pushing a lady in a wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
And that was just incredible, absolutely fantastic to see. I saw people with prosthetic limbs, arms and legs, just doing amazing things and achieving amazing things. The whole thing was just fabulous. It really was.
So kind of running up to it, you started to feel a bit more confident?
I don't know. It was more of I think I can do it, but I'm not entirely sure, but I'm quite excited, but I'm a bit anxious. It was like a whole mixture of things. On paper, I should have been able to do it because I had done all of the training, well, bar one of the long runs because I was poorly, but I had done the majority of the training and I'd worked really hard for it. And I had, I'd got over my back problem, my flipping blister problem as well. My God, that was awful.
Yeah, it was from my point of view as well. I got sent pictures of blisters, and that was,
Oh my God, that was the biggest blister I've ever had in my life. And I never want another one like that again. It was just obscene.
Yeah, it was, but at least I got to experience it as well.
Yeah. Well, sharing is caring, or caring is sharing, whatever it
It
is.
wasn't for
Whatever the
me. It
saying
wasn't
is.
for me. I didn't enjoy that. You can keep your scabby feet yourself next time. Oh, oh, and because my blooming WhatsApp saves to my camera roll, I got a right shock the other day. I hadn't deleted it. I was like, oh.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh yeah, don't. Oh God, no, don't show that to anybody. That was pretty rank. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I can't remember what I was saying.
So I was saying you were feeling, well, you maybe not confident, but determined, perhaps.
Determined's a good word for it. Yes. But I really felt like I was going into the unknown, and I was really, because I didn't have a clue, to be honest. I don't know how these elites do it. They're incredible. They're like machines.
I know. I've been
Um,
observing them. I
oh,
watch the elite runners. You're too short.
well,
I'm pretty sure they would
you'd think
make
with little legs I could go a little bit faster or something, but yeah.
no. I was watching on the television, and honestly, the space they cover in a stride, you probably have to take 4.
Yeah, I would. You're absolutely right. I
Oh,
would.
I was genuinely watching them going, they're like gazelles. They are just incredible humans that are just look like they're built for it. I think,
Yeah.
again, I don't know how tall they were in person, but I'm pretty sure I'd feel short next to them. They just looked Amazonian, just like
Yeah.
having a little jog through the streets. I'm thinking, how are they doing this? And it keeps saying how many miles they've gone.
I know. It's
But
incredible.
actually, Lowell made a really good point.
Mm.
I'm not going to say it doesn't happen often because he'll cut this out, but I think it takes them a couple of hours to run it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which is amazing. But then you look at other people who take, what's the maximum you can take on the marathon?
Oh God, I don't know. I think they do have a cut-off time.
Yeah, what's that?
I don't know. I think it's about somewhere between 7 and 8 hours. I think if you think you're going to be a 7-hour runner, then they provide extra support to you. But they move the finish. So after about 7 or 8, I think it's 8 hours, they move the finish from the mall and set up an alternate finish in St James's Park.
Right.
So you can take a lot longer if you need to. And there was a chappie who was well reported in the news as being the final runner. He was amazing. I think it was 8 hours something. Oh God, I hope I've not.
No, it was a
Added
significant
extra
amount.
on, but it was he'd had a really horrible car accident and a bleed on the brain last year. He'd overcome so much and just thought, what the hell, I'm doing it. And he was fabulous. But I think he was the last one on the mall, and then they moved the finish over to St James's Park, and there were a number of other people who finished there, and including one lady who I've seen in a Facebook group, who was the final finisher, and just an amazing accomplishment, just absolutely fantastic. So they do allow for later finishes, which is really great actually, because it's such an iconic thing to do, and it's one of the biggest charity fundraisers in the world, I think, as well. I think it raised something like 50 odd million last year in fundraising, and it's probably set to raise a lot more this year. So it's really great that they have that extra support for people.
Definitely. So yeah, Lowell was saying that the elites do it in a couple of hours, but actually someone that's doing it in 7 or 8 hours, they are putting in a huge, maximum effort for that amount of time. And whilst obviously the elites are putting in maximum effort for 2 hours, I'm not taking anything away from anyone. I'm actually saying, even if you crawl over that finish line after 12 hours, you've been working your backside off for 12 hours. That's some endurance test.
It is. I mean, to be able to be on your feet and keep moving for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours without taking a rest or sitting down or whatever, that is amazing. To be able to do that is absolutely incredible. Being on your feet for that long is flipping hard. Having said that, I totally agree. doing it in 2 hours. I think my lungs might explode if I attempted that.
But I was just watching them, and I watched the men's elite and the women's elite, and they just glide. It's just it's amazing to watch, but incredibly
amazing.
But then equally, you see a crowd of people running, and you think, actually, that's incredible. And some of the non-elite still posted like incredibly good times. They must have
God, yeah.
flying round. I don't know how they did it, but they did, and it's amazing.
There were some people in my charity group actually that posted incredible times. There was one lady, Debs, I think I saw somewhere she'd only started running 4 years ago to lose a bit of weight or something, and she's done several marathons, and this was her second London. And I can't remember her time, but it was something amazing, like 3.5 hours or 3 hours 45 or something. It was just fantastic.
Good on her.
So yeah, and there were other people in my group who and also there were a lot of people from Hatch Warren Runners from my running club who took part. I think there were about 20 of us in the end.
Wow.
And yeah, there was some really, really speedy people who had really good races and did really well out of it.
So before the marathon, I want to say it was the Wednesday, probably wasn't. You had to go up to London, didn't you?
I did, yes. So they put on a big exhibition at the Excel in London, where you can go and pick up your number and then wander around and buy things and spend too much money, which I did all of.
Well done. Well done, you. Supporting the cause.
Well, I can help myself really. But you walk in and there's all these little booths, there's millions of them, where you go and chat to somebody and you hand over your details and they give you a plastic kit bag and your number. And it was a younger chap, really nice chap who I was dealing with. And he gave me my number and I burst into tears.
Oh, God.
And he must have thought, oh my God, we've got to write one here. But I was so emotional. I can't explain it. I was so emotional about it. It was like the reality was getting closer of, oh God, I'm going to run the London Marathon. And oh my God, what I should say, what I've completely forgotten to say, which is really important, is my mum and dad ran the London Marathon 21 years ago.
21 years ago, was it?
21 years ago, yeah. And my mum was the same age then as I am now.
Oh,
so
wow.
Obviously with mum's illness and everything, it seemed like, and she wasn't, her prognosis wasn't great when she was diagnosed. So it seemed like, well, it's this year or never, really, isn't it? I've got to do it. I've got to follow mum and dad's footsteps. And, the stars have aligned, it's meant to be. So I was kind of carrying all of that with me as well. So I was incredibly emotional about it. The exhibition itself is amazing. There are, it's loads and loads of running stands and places to buy stuff that you really don't need and stuff that you do need. And I spent a fortune at the New Balance stand. They're one of the sponsors. They do all the official clothing and everything. So yeah, I'm wearing that with pride every day. And then I got chatting with a lady because I was trying to get my whereabouts for the start and the finish and how to get to various places, because obviously when you finish there's a lot of people there and you can't just kind of stop and find your family or your friends or whatever. You have to arrange a meeting point, and I was trying to figure that out because obviously mum wouldn't be able to walk that far, so it needed to be quite close to the finish. And I was chatting to this lady on the TCS stand, and she said, are you okay about it? And that was it. I was gone. I was in tears again, floods of tears, just kept crying.
Second time.
Everybody. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I was so emotional.
No, but it's a big thing. It's not only in itself is it a big deal running the London Marathon. I mean, that's insane, full stop. But with the fact that you're running for a charity that's so important to you, everything that's that is going on with your mum, the fact that your mum and dad were going to come down, the fact they'd run the marathon 21 years ago, that is a lot to take into any situation.
Yes, and I guess at one point we weren't entirely sure if mum and dad would be there as well. So it was getting closer, it was like, actually, yeah, we're going to make this happen. She is going to be there. I am going to be able to hug her at the finish. And that was incredibly special. So the expo was absolutely brilliant. Loved it, really loved it. Too long on my feet. Got lost on the tube trying to get home.
Oh, I'm good on the tube now.
I know, you're an I should have phoned you for directions, shouldn't I? Being
Did
an
you have
expert.
Google Maps?
I didn't know.
That's where you went wrong. You need
Well,
Google Maps, and then you need someone called Ruth on WhatsApp when you're having a full-on mental breakdown in the middle of a train station to ask which direction you need to go.
Yeah, that would have come in handy. Yeah.
Google Maps, the dream.
It's the way to go.
Well, thank you for listening to part 1. I hope you loved it as much as I loved learning all about Ruth's marathon prep. Next week, we are going for part 2. We'll get to hear the rest of the story. So don't forget to tune in then. Thanks so much for listening.